Alrighty, so we got 12 games to review in this video, and what I'll end up doing is that I'll first review the 8 games that is going to be happening on this board and also on the other board, but after that, I'm also going to just watch the Galaxy versus Austin FC, and then of course put the notes down for the last 4 remaining game on the board, because, after all, I only have 2 boards here in my room, and that, I have to kind of write down notes for the last 4 games since I don't have enough room, and since the game between Austin versus the Galaxy kick off about an hour at the time of this recording, most likely I will not have enough time to just quickly write down the notes for the last 4 game on the board and basically start recording once again. But that being said, in terms of the action that we saw from yesterday, well, there was definitely some interesting action, and it turns out that, a lot of things I've said in the preview that are kind of some prediction of the outcome of these games, a lot of them actually came true. Though we get to the first game, which is LAFC versus the San Jose Earthquakes, and it seems like the Quakes are back in the Almeida wild ride. I mean, there's just something about the Quakes where even with Almeida being gone, it seemed like the wild ride continues, where it feels like every single game that they get into these games where it just feels like they get into the game where either them or their opponent decide to play defense whatsoever. And that was the case in the first half, where there was basically no defense that was played in the first half. Now, I will also say that there was a very controversial call in this game, and that this is something that I usually don't like to say, but I think the Quakes got hard done by the referee, and in some way got robbed by the referee with them should have got at least a point out of this game. Now, in the first half, they, of course, have the primary blue jersey for every single team that is wearing, and this was the first game that I was able to see. And, I did say that, some of them look pretty good and some of them look very bad, but when I look at it for the first time and really for the rest of the game, yeah, it was bad. Like, I think if you are a broadcaster, I feel sorry for them, and I gotta definitely share the condolence for them, because it was an absolute nightmare to see the numbering and basically see the players. And it was also kind of confusing too, because not every single home team were wearing either the primary blue kit or the white one. So I kind of got confused, like, wait, is that the home team or is that the home team? I mean, it was just super confusing. And also, there seemed to be a protest by the LAFC supporter group, the 3252, and they were silenced for the first 12 minutes. Now, apparently, from what I heard after reading their Reddit page, is that it is a protest not because of that situation that happened in Texas, but more because of the situation that happened on Wednesday when they lost to the Galaxy once again in El Tráfico. And, I just feel like this was just bizarre, the fact that they decided to protest that. Like, I get it, yes, losing another El Tráfico is tough, especially in a US Open Cup, but you are at the top of the Supporter Shield standings. Like, you have the best record in the league. I've seen teams where they decide to do protests and their supporter group do protests for good reason, like, raise awareness to domestic violence or potentially protest the owner of the team that is running the team to the ground. But to just protest simply a game that you lost against your rival, I mean, I think that's a little bit of a stretch. I mean, you don't see the Portland Timbers do a protest against the Seattle Sounders after they lost 6-2 last season, and you especially don't see either the New York team, especially for NYCFC. Remember how they lost 7-0 to the Red Bulls? I didn't see NYCFC protest the next game after that. So again, I feel like that was really bizarre, and again, especially of what has gone on from this past week and that tragic event that happened in Texas, it was kind of a little bit off timing that they decided to do this protest. But nevertheless, in the 5th minute, a penalty was given to LAFC after Gregush clipped the heels of Holland's hand. Now, a lot of Quakes fans were angry about this because they thought that it was soft, but for me, I think this is the right call. I mean, you can clearly see Gregush clip the heel of Holland's head in this one, which Arenga was able to put that one away and gives LAFC a 1-0 lead. And, the 3-2-5-2, they didn't celebrate. Like, there was no beer shower that was going on. I mean, there was smoke that was going on, but it was kind of weird to just see them kind of, I think they were lightly celebrating, but they weren't actually standing. Like, they were very happy that their team scored. But in the 10th minute, Cifuentes puts it wide from close range, and I thought early on it was all LAFC, and it seems like this was just going to be one of those games where the Quakes are just going to get absolutely run out of the door at Bank of California Stadium. And I've seen this before. I mean, I've seen where when the Quakes play against LAFC, they just get completely blown out of the door with them not having a very good record against LAFC on the road. And then as soon as when the 3-2-5-2 basically started to sing again, they saw their team score, and it's Hans that scored here from Rodriguez to make it 2-0 in favor of Quakes. And before I even had a chance to write, well, this is going to be even a longer day for the Quakes, Ibobasi would score from Montreal to give the Quakes some life in this game, and this came from a bad turnover from LAFC. Again, there was no defense that was playing in this first half. Like, the amount of time where both teams was able to get into their opposition, get into the opposition 18-yard box with no contention at times was just kind of laughable at times. But in the 18th minute, Janelle blasted wide from close range. Again, it doesn't seem like defense was being played in this one. Mark Sinkowski then denied Arango before Ibobasi should have scored a tap in here. And, to the defense of Ibobasi, I think that one was kind of a little bit behind him, but still. Yeah, for a goal score, that has to end up into the back of net, and that's one that, I know Ibobasi does end up with 2 goals, and he might not think about some of the bad miss that he has, which, that actually wasn't the first bad miss that he has, because he also had a big opportunity after when Crapo was able to deny Espinoza that he had a free header from 4 yards out. Like, that has to be put into the back of the net, and I was worried that these missed chances that the Quakes were having was going to cost them, because we know that when you're the inferior team facing against a superior team, you don't take advantage of those golden opportunity, it's going to come back to haunt you. But it turns out it did kind of haunt the Quakes, but not at that moment, because Ibobasi kind of makes up for it. As in the 31st minute, he scored here from Espinoza to tie the game up at 2 apiece. And again, just terrible marking from LAFC from the corner here. Like, Ibobasi was just flying acres of space there, and that ties the game up at 2 apiece. And really, in just 31 minutes, or in a span of about 24 minutes, we have 4 goals that I've seen in this game. And it seems like MLS After Dark was in full effect. In fact, I kind of wrote that after I wrote Hans had blasted high after JT kind of got caught out of his own half. I mean, this is the second game that I've seen JT Marcinkowski had a moment where he just kind of get caught out of their own half. And I've said this before, I know JT is still a young goalkeeper, and I know he has a lot to learn. But, yeah, you can definitely see that he has his limits. I mean, he's kind of what I would say a very mediocre goalkeeper in this league, where he does sometimes do some of those heroic saves, but also at times do some very boneheaded play like what he did here. And he also did another boneheaded play later in this game, too, that almost cost the Quakes a goal in this one. But in the 35th minute, it looked like it was 3-2 in favor of LAFC when Arango scored the third goal, but unfortunately the goal was disallowed for offside as the flag went up right after when Chicho Arango scored that one. Cal then curls it high from 8 yards out, as the shots were 8 apiece for both of these teams. I was actually kind of surprised the shot weren't higher, because it just felt like both teams was just attacking it with just enjoyment, because of how the defense for both of these teams just decided that they weren't going to show up in this game whatsoever. And then there was some miscommunication between Nathan and JT, and fortunately for the Quakes, they got away with another one, and we had to have time with the score tied at 2 apiece between both of these teams. But you knew that in the second half, this game is not going to stay tied. In fact, it didn't stay tied for long, because in the 47th minute, Rodriguez would give LAFC the lead again just 2 minutes into the second half. Though, despite the early goal, and we thought that we were going to get into another crazy second half, which in some way I was kind of hoping that's not the case, because I was already running out of room in terms of writing the notes down, and I thought I might need my traveling board just to kind of wrote down all the notes of how crazy this game is. The second half was kind of a little bit less chaotic, which I thought that kind of favored LAFC with them leading the game. Cal then blast one wide from 24 yards out. Before this is where we get to the controversial call. So there was a shout for a penalty from the Quakes not given, though this looked like it should have been a penalty when Thompson looked like he was brought down by Palacio and also was stepped on by Arango. I mean, really, you can just pick your choice of which should have been a penalty. I mean, I think obviously when Palacio brought down Thompson in the box, that clearly should have been a penalty. I've seen before that is being called a penalty in another game. And then of course after when Thompson was brought down by Palacio in the box, he got stepped on by Arango. Now, Arango kind of accidentally stepped on him there, so maybe that probably was a warrant to be a penalty. But the previous foul or the previous play where Palacios brought down Tommy Thompson, that absolutely should have been a penalty. And again, I mean, I know the Quakes have been benefited by referees so far this season, so maybe this is kind of just the MLS gods decided to kind of even things up, and that maybe they demand some payment because of some of the calls that we got away with it earlier in the season. But still, yeah, it's tough. The fact that of course wasn't given a penalty, and it kind of had a huge effect to this game, because after that, Marcinkowski was able to deny Acosta as LAFC was trying to look to put this away, but they kind of started to drop their lines and realize that, yeah, let's not get into an open game against the Quakes again. We tried to do that in the first half. It did not work well for us, so we're just going to try to hold on to this 3-2 lead, which that's exactly what they did, as they win 3-2 in this game. And the shots in this one, 13 shots compared to 11 that the Quakes had, 9 shots on goal compared to 4 that the Quakes had, 4 shots that was blocked compared to 5 that the Quakes had, no shots that was blocked compared, or 4 shots off target compared to 5 that the Quakes had, 2 shots that was blocked compared to none that LAFC had, and possession-wise, 55% possession compared to 45% possession that LAFC has in this game. So, LAFC got a bounce-back win, albeit it was pretty ugly. And, for the Quakes, I mean, as frustrated as I am with this loss, and that this also is kind of maybe an example that, that Alex Carvalho new head coach boost that the Quakes have gone, yeah, I'm actually not surprised whatsoever that is started to kind of fade away a little bit, but I'm kind of expected that. I mean, I think it is pretty clear that, we know for the rest of the season, for this Quakes team, it really doesn't matter what happened for the rest of the season. I mean, this team is not going to make the playoffs. They just need to kind of play for pride for the rest of the season, and that will be it. And so far, they are playing for pride and have been fighting hard in some of these games. I mean, besides the last game against Sacramento, where, again, I think fans have rights to be angry about that, because maybe that's the only competition that the Quakes might actually do well this year. But at least they're fighting hard, and that it is pretty obvious what their biggest need that they need in this summer transfer window, or even in the off season, is that they need a new backline. I mean, if they can get a new backline, and maybe a new goalkeeper, or maybe JT can start to kind of clean up on some of his mistake that he made this season, there could be a bright future for this Quakes team, because it's clear that this attack is good enough for this team. It's just the defense that is kind of letting this team down throughout the season. And they can just have not really need the best defense, but even just a decent defense, there could be a chance that this team could go on a good run. But again, I've said before, the defense is kind of really holding them back, and it's pretty easy to see that this offseason they definitely need to address that this offseason. Hopefully that is, because with the Quakes, and especially with the ownership, there's no guarantee that of course is going to be the case. But moving on, in terms of the next match, we got Atlanta United versus the Columbus Crew. And for the Crew, there's just something about them playing against Atlanta and how they are able to get 3 points every time they go on the road against Atlanta United. I mean, so far Columbus have always struggled on the road, but if there's one place that they don't struggle on the road, it's Mercedes-Benz Stadium, because they got another win in this one, and I believe this is the 3rd straight road win that the Crew has had against Atlanta United, and that's compared to basically the when they do go on the road to play against the other opponent. I think they only win third game ever since they beat Atlanta United on the road for the very first time. So, like I said, Columbus clearly have Atlanta number, and they got off to a great start in this game. As just 1 minute into this game, and really 30 seconds into this game, Jonathan Mensah would score from Pedro Santos to give the Crew a 1-0 lead, and it's a great header there from Mensah from a set piece. We know he's a dangerous man on the set piece there, and not really good marking there from Atlanta United on that corner, but that gives the Crew a 1-0 lead. Though Atlanta looked to equalize right away in the 9th minute as Room tipped Dijon header over. Hurtado then blasted high from long range before Room denied Araujo from close range. Rossetto then hits it straight to Eloy Room. By the way, Eloy Room was also another reason why Columbus won this one, because he was definitely on top of his game and kind of at the peak Eloy Room that we know that he can be, where when he is really on his form, he is really arguably the best goalkeeper in this league. Dijon then hits it high in the 32nd minute before Araujo blasted wide from 20 yards down. Araujo then had an identical shot that unsurprisingly also missed wide in the 41st minute. And despite all the chances that Atlanta has, they could not quite get the equalizer. In fact, right on the stroke of halftime, Columbus would double their lead. It's Hurtado scoring from Etienne to make it 2-0 in favor of Atlanta. And really, it was just kind of against the run of play and kind of came on the counter attack. And just like that, the Crew were up 2-0. By the way, I think the league website must really love Atlanta. I mean, we know that the league always tends to love Atlanta United, and they probably were disbelieved the fact that their team was down 1-0, or whoever is in charge of the scorekeeping, he must be an Atlanta United fan, and he just wouldn't believe the fact that Columbus had got that second goal, because for a while this game was at halftime, I checked on the league website and the score was 1-0, and I had to check a couple of times to see whether is there like a goal that was disallowed, because keep in mind I was keeping track of 4 games at a time, and no, there was not a goal that was disallowed. So it was kind of weird to see the league website just say 1-0 for a very long time, but they finally changed it to 2-0 about a couple of minutes later. But as we go into the second half with the Crew leading 2-0, there was a huge shout for a penalty for Columbus, as they thought Morris was brought down by Shuttleworth there. And I mean, this was really tough to see, and I think if they did go to VAR, I mean, it's kind of 50-50, because on one hand, it definitely looked like maybe Shuttleworth did brought down Morris, but then when you also look at the other angle, it looked like maybe Shuttleworth just got enough the ball before bringing down Morris. And I think in this case, maybe VAR look at it and they were kind of saying that, well, it's kind of it's not clear and obvious in terms of the fact that is a penalty, which I think that also maybe is a good example of the fact that even though we know that VAR is now basically centralized in Atlanta, and how there's all these conspiracy of the fact that, well, looks like Atlanta United is going to get the call every time. Not so fast. This maybe just proved to you that the league is clearly not biased toward Atlanta United just because they decide to centralize the VAR room base in Atlanta. Now, in the 67th minute, the first chance for Atlanta United in the second half, as Room was able to deny Cisneros from close range, and that says a lot, because it has taken Atlanta United 23 minutes to get their first chance of the second half, and it just kind of tells you that they were not creating enough chances. I mean, to the Crew credit, they did a good job in terms of shutting down this Atlanta team, but we've seen this before with Atlanta United. They just don't have a lot of creativity at times in games where they do face against a team that's trying to bunker against them. Like this is not the same team as what we saw back in 2018 in that free-flowing team that Tata Martino basically had. But in the 86th minute, Campbell heads it wide from close range, but in the first minute of stoppage time, Atlanta have a lifeline, as Dom Dwyer would score from Franco to give Atlanta one back and set up this to be a grandstand finish. And this was actually a bicycle kick effort that was scored from Dom Dwyer, so certainly goal of the week candidate anytime when there's a bicycle kick effort. Though I will talk about there are other games where it could be definitely worthy of goal of the week, especially if we'll talk about this game where there was 2 goals that was scored in this game. That is goal of the week kind of caliber material. But on that same goal that Atlanta United of course scored, Pineda actually got a red card. Now I have no idea what happened there, and that it's kind of weird the fact that your team scored and then your head coach basically got sent off, because usually it's the opposite, where if you see the opposition score late winner and it might be a controversial way, then your head coach could be sent off. But here, Pineda just kind of got sent off, and I still to this day have no idea what happened that made him got sent off for this game. And again, there's always something about Atlanta United head coach getting sent off. Like, remember back in the Gabriel Heinze day where he also I don't think Heinze ever got sent off, but he actually became the first head coach that have to serve a suspension because he accumulates so many yellow card because of how it feels like every single game he was getting a yellow card because he was barking at the referee for some bad decision against his team. Now, in the 5th minute of stoppage time, there was one last opportunity for Atlanta to equalize, but Room, as I said, he was on his game in this one. He robbed Moreno there from close range, and then after the full-time whistle was blown, Almada would get a straight red for basically confronting the referee and basically put his hands on the referee. And anytime when you put your hand on the referee, that's a big no-no. And even though I know it doesn't look like Almada kind of made a lot of contact to the referee, again, anytime when you put your hands to the referee, it's an automatic red card, and it's unsurprising that of course is the case. So this is really from bad to worse, where not only Atlanta is not going to have their head coach in the next game, but they also won't have their most expensive signing in the next game too, as in the end, Columbus were able to walk away with a 2-1 victory. The shots in this one, 22 shots compared to 9 that Columbus had, 9 shots on goal compared to 3 that Columbus had, 7 shots off target compared to 3 that Columbus had, 6 shots that was blocked compared to 3 that Columbus had, and possession-wise, 70% possession compared to 30% possession that the Crew has in this game. And yeah, again, the Crew, they just have Atlanta's number, especially when they play against them at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. And for Atlanta, I mean, it's not a big surprise that they are really struggling right now with the amount of injuries that they have to deal with. Yeah, I mean, it definitely tough for them to trying to weather this storm, and hope that once they do start to get players back healthy, and that's a big if, because we do have some of these players from this team that is going to be done for the season. Hopefully they can ride the ship, because it feels like this has started to become something similar to what happened in 2020. And anytime when you mention 2020 to Atlanta United fans, they definitely were trying to change the subject, because 2020 was a bad season for this team. But that being said, moving on in terms of the next match, it's probably one of the most one-sided Atlantic Cup that we've seen between the New York Red Bulls versus DC United. And really the action kind of happened in the second half, because in the first half, yeah, there wasn't really much that happened. There was a shout for a penalty for the Red Bulls in the 17th minute that was not given. And really the first good look of the game came in the 18th minute when Pines headed just high for DC United. But overall, it was just a snooze fest kind of game, with shots only one apiece for 40 minutes into this. And really, the Red Bulls didn't get their first real chance until the 41st minute, when Dylan Nealis heads it just high in the 41st minute. And yeah, unsurprisingly, in a snooze fest first half, we head to halftime scoreless between both of these teams. But when we get to the second half, this is where the action begins. In the 50th minute, Estrada blasted wide from close range before just 2 minutes later, Gresso round Cornell there, and it looked like he was trying to put it into the empty net, but you know, the angle kind of gone against him, and that he only found the side netting. But there was no doubt the DC kind of jumped out to a promising start, and already had more chances in the first 7 minutes of the second half compared to pretty much the whole part of or they already have more chances in the first 7 minutes of the second half compared to the whole of first half. Though the Red Bulls eventually did get a big opportunity in the 54th minute, as Morgan had a curler that was clear off the line. But then on the very next sequence, Luquinhas would score here to give the Red Bulls a 1-0 lead. You know what? Luquinhas is kind of started to remind me a little bit of Fabio. I mean, both of these guys are Brazilian, but I think many people don't give Fabio enough credit, especially during his time with the Red Bulls, where he actually was a very decent player. And there was time in the beginning of the season he was actually leading the league in terms of assists. Now, obviously, Luquinhas is not that type of player, but he's definitely a guy that has produced some good goals for this team and have scored some goals. And he was not done in terms of the goal scoring department, because just 4 minutes later he would score again of what could be the goal of the week candidate. And I am just kind of amazed the fact that he actually slipped on this play as he's trying to hit it, and I'm not quite sure did he meant to slip when he hits this one, but that one was in the upper 90 when he basically hits it. I mean, that is just an absolute golazo score from Luquinhas. And then just 6 minutes later, it seems like Morgan probably saw that and like, yeah, you know what, I'm gonna try to one-up you, because he scored an absolute missile from about 30 yards out, and that could also be a question mark for goal of the week. I mean, this could be the first week where we could see two teams that have goal of the week candidate in a single week. And again, you know, just take your pick which one is more impressive. I mean, in terms, so if you want to see a goal of the week that is scored with a great technique, I would say it's got to be Lewis Morgan. But if you just want to see a goal that is just it's hard to believe that he, of course, was able to put that win. It's got to be Luquinhas with the way that, again, he slipped there. And usually when you slip, you basically put that one into orbit. But the way that he kind of slipped, it just somehow worked out for him and just put that one in the upper 90, where Bill Hemy just had no chance in terms of saving that. Heck, you could put like free goalkeeper in goal and no one would be able to save that one. It was just placed so perfectly there. Morgan then fired it wide from long range to the 67th minute, and at that point, I mean, the Red Bulls were feeling it from long range, and why not? You basically just scored back-to-back golazo in short succession, and that it is pretty much bombs away for the Red Bulls up to that point. Nealis then heads it wide in the 73rd minute. It was all Red Bulls up to that point, with them them with those 3 goals in a span of just 10 minutes. Though DC did get a consolation in the 87th minute when Kamara was able to score from Gresso and Smith, but the Red Bulls would restore that 3-goal lead in the 90th minute as Alfaro pretty much just sums up a very disappointing night for DC. Scoring an own goal here. And yeah, final score of this game, Red Bulls win 4-1 against DC in one of the more one-sided Atlantic Cup that we've seen in recent memories. And the stats kind of backs it up. 14 shots compared to just 4 that DC had. 6 shots on goal compared to 1 that DC had. 5 shots off target compared to 3 that DC had. 3 shots that was blocked compared to none that DC had. And possession-wise, 53% possession compared to 47% possession that DC had in this game. And just the previous week where the Red Bulls suffered their first loss after going unbeaten on the road for their first 6 games, the Red Bulls follow that by getting their first home win of the season after going winless at home, I believe, in their first 5 games. So again, it's just kind of a weird pattern that the Red Bulls have had, but I'm pretty sure their fans are going to be very happy because they've been waiting for this moment for a long time. You know, they know their team have been very good on the road, but it's just kind of so frustrated that they can't translate that similar performance when they play at Red Bull Arena until tonight. I mean, they really performed well, and this was kind of a vintage kind of Red Bulls performance where, you know, prior to this season, the Red Bulls have been at a very good home team, and that also kind of just makes it look very weird, the fact that they struggle so much this season at home. But that being said, moving on, in terms of the next match, it is Toronto and Chicago Fire. So I said in the preview, in this wooden derby be in this, I don't know what wooden Sparty is, but the wooden derby in this game in the Eastern Conference, I have a feeling this is going to be a good one because we've seen this before, where when you have 2 of the worst team in the league face off against each other, there's going to be some barn burner that is going to happen. And safe to say that this game was definitely a barn burner, and this game also had some big momentum swing. But in the end, when you also look at the stats in this game, it maybe kind of shocked you a little bit. And we'll definitely get to talk about the stats, where it kind of shocks the fact that was the stat lines at the end of this game. But early on in the first half, I thought the Fire was on the front foot early, though there was no shots through the first 10 minutes, as it hasn't been the best start in this wooden spoon derby in the Eastern Conference. That would change, though, because in the 13th minute, DeAndre Kerr would score from Jimenez to give Toronto a 1-0 lead. And for Slonina, we talk about how he's been in a very poor form in this past month. And yeah, this pretty much explains it. I mean, this is one that, you know, Kerr did hits it relatively well, but Slonina has to push that one away. Like, he did get a hand into it, but you know, he just didn't get enough there. And that, again, if he is going to be a player that could be a future U.S. men's national team player, and I know he's still relatively young, but those are the mistakes that he needs to cut down, because that's just a very soft goal that he gave up, and it's not the first time we've seen it this season, where it just feels like he maybe has been cursed, and that the pressure has really now got to him ever since he has really risen up to be a guy that a lot of people are saying that he's a future U.S. men's national team goalkeeper. Though in the 17th minute, Shaqiri blasted high from long range. I thought this was probably the best game that Xherdan Shaqiri have played for the Fire, and yet he didn't actually end up on the score sheet, though he did end up on the assist chart twice in this one. But there was no doubt that the Fire was trying to push for an equalizer in Toronto. You know, this season they look vulnerable. Actually, not on the attack, but more like on the defensive end. I mean, it's not the first time this season we said the TFC defense have not been very good. There was a shout for a penalty for the Fire that was not given in the 18th minute before Slonina was able to deny Jimenez after it took a wicked deflection off of Shiho's. I thought Slonina, after that poor goal, he actually did bounce back and have a decent game. But again, you know, a life of a goalkeeper is always tough, with the way that, you know, you can have a good game, but if you give up one soft goal, yeah, you're definitely going to be remembered for that for the rest of the game. Navarro then puts it wide from close range in the 28th minute before Shabilko missed an absolute sitter from close range, but fortunately for him, the flag went up. I mean, if he would have put that one away, it wouldn't have counted for offside. And yeah, TFC were able to hold on to a 1-0 lead as we get into the second half, but this is where things get even more crazier, because in the second half, Shaqiri had tried an overhead kick that goes straight to Westberg before Mueller blasted high in the 49th minute, and the Fire kind of picked up where they left off, and they were pushing to try to get the equalizer, and they did get the equalizer in the 52nd minute, as Tehran would score from Shaqiri here to tie the game up at 1 apiece for the Fire. And it looked like they went up 2-1 just 4 minutes later, or just 2 minutes later, as Torres thought that he, of course, scored the go-ahead goal for the Fire. Only for the goal was disallowed because there was an offside decision on the attacking sequence, and it's definitely the right call. I mean, there was like 3 Fire player that was in an offside position, and Torres, of course, were one of those. Nelson then had TFC's first opportunity in the 58th minute in the second half, but he hits that one to the side netting. Mueller then went through on goal, but he just could not quite close it in. I thought Chris Mueller also had a decent game, but unfortunately was not on the score sheet. Shibilko then missing a sitter in the back post, but then 5 minutes later, he would score from Jimenez and Shaqiri to give the Fire a 2-1 lead. So that was classic Kasper Shibilko, and probably that made Union fans happy with the way that, yep, that's the Shibilko that we know of, where, you know, he could be a guy that can score some goals in some of these games, but also can make some boneheaded miss, as we've seen just previously, before he scored what would be the go-ahead goal for the Chicago Fire. But that lead wouldn't last, because in the 70th minute, a penalty was given to Toronto after VAR deemed that Navarro brought down Pozuelo in the box, which Pozuelo was able to put away the penalty to tie the game up at 2 apiece. Looked like the Fire was going to try to retake the lead just a minute later, as Torres looked like he did that, but it was denied by Westberg. I mean, the game was just crazy with the way that the momentum looked like it was with the Fire, and then it was with TFC, and then looked like now it's back with the Fire. But in the 78th minute, Toronto would take the lead once again, as Pozuelo would score from Nelson to make it 3-2 in favor of TFC. Now, the reason why I didn't put goal of the week with a question mark with this one is that although it was a great goal that was scored by Pozuelo from outside the box, and a little bit of an Alejandro Pozuelo kind of magic showing in this game for Toronto, this one actually did kind of came off the post, and it kind of came off the post with a friendly kind of way, where it just bounced off the post and just crossed the line as it basically touched back onto the turf. I mean, it was kind of, the way that it bounced off the post, it must have a lot of backspin, where it basically bounced off and then toward goal there. But yeah, the goal originally, it took a second or two for the referee to give it a goal, but it feels like maybe VAR said that, yeah, that's a good goal, even though, you know, they probably only took it a couple of seconds. And those kind of play, usually I was surprised that it took only a couple of seconds, because usually they might look at it to see whether or not indeed if that ball actually did cross the line when it bounced back off the post. But it crossed the line, and TFC had the 3-2 lead. But then Shaqiri tried to tie the game up as he went through on goal, but he only puts it into the TFC supporter group stand. And I just feel like this game was not over, because with the way how crazy this game is, you know there's going to be another goal that could be scored in this one. And there was almost that in the 3rd minute of stoppage time, as She-Host just heads it high from close range in the 3rd minute of stoppage time to try to make this a free game. But in the end, it finished 3-2 in favor of Toronto FC. And the shots in this one, and this is where, again, I get to when I talked about the stats earlier, where I just simply cannot believe this is the stats. I mean, I know Chicago were the better team in this game, but I didn't think that they absolutely dominate the stat chart by putting 30 free shots in this one compared to just 5 that TFC had. Now, to be fair, 13 of those 30 free shots was blocked, so those number is kind of a little bit inflated a little bit, but still they did put 9 shots on goal compared to the 4 that TFC had, 11 shots off target compared to 1 that TFC had, 13 shots that was blocked compared to none that TFC had, and possession-wise, 62% possession compared to 38% possession that Toronto FC had. And for TFC, they end their 9-game winless run, but for the Fire, it's now 7 games without a win, and this is probably the most frustrating one, because again, they were the better team for most part of the game. But yeah, I mean, you know, the Toronto just shows some resilience at time to retake the lead. And again, this was just one of those games where it's just kind of bonkers, and that it is just a classic kind of MLS game where, again, there's just something about whenever the two worst teams play against each other, where you think nothing is going to happen in that game, and then everything basically happened in that one. But that being said, I am now going to switch board and look at the next 4 games that happened in terms of the busy Saturday night action. But moving on, in terms of the next match, is the New England Revolution versus the Philadelphia Union. And speaking of game that we have one team that dominate the stat lines but unable to get all 3 points at the end of the 90 minute. That's the case for the Refs in this one. Now, the good news for the Refs in this one is that at least they got a point out of this one, unlike the Fire, that is going to be absolutely hard done. The fact that they absolutely peppered TFC goal and they still weren't able to even come away with 1 point out of that road game. But the bad news for the Refs in this one is that that goal that they gave up against the Union was just an absolute WTF moment by Omar Gonzalez, and we'll definitely talk about that once we get to that point. But earlier in the first half, Bo puts a weak long-range shot straight to Blake. Gustavo Bo, of course, making his return for the Refs in this one, and I thought he was lively in the early part of this game. I mean, it was pretty clear that Bo wants to get back to this Refs team and get back playing and get back scoring with this team, and he had another opportunity in the 14th minute when he had a long-range effort that missed wide. McNamara then heads it just wide in the 17th minute as the Refs were all over the Union early on and was pressing early for the lead. McNamara then tried to curl one in, but he missed this one wide. I mean, we know Tommy Mac can definitely curl those one in. Before Tristanson hits a deflection shot in the back post that went wide there, and then Bo heads it wide in the back post. And, again, the Refs all over the Union, but the lack of finishing and not really testing Blake could come back to haunt them in this game. I mean, one thing about the Refs in this one is that I feel like this was kind of a similar performance that the 2020 New England Revolution would put, where how in that 2020 Revs team where they would have these kind of game where they absolutely dominate their opposition and would be just shooting from everywhere, but unfortunately they just couldn't show those clinical finishing, or sometimes just kind of overplay it in the final third. And this just kind of feels like it was that type of game for them where, despite the fact that they were putting a lot of shots, not all of them was actually testing Blake, and that, Blake was relatively comfortable, even though some of those shots were actually very close in terms of hitting the back of the net. Tristanson then hits it wide from close range in the 41st minute before Gonzalez had a header that was clear off the line, and despite all the pressure that the Refs had, we stayed scoreless heading into the second half. And in the second half, it was pretty much the same. Hio had a one-hopper free kick that goes right to Blake before Blake had to deny Bo, but he did kind of allow a rebound for New England to pounce on it, but unfortunately New England wasn't able to pounce on that and capitalize it. Though in the 73rd minute, they had a big opportunity to finally get their deserved lead, as a penalty was given to the Refs after VAR deemed that Elliott basically handballed that one in the box, and that of course was the right call, because it was pretty clear that Jack Elliott basically put his hand like right around here, and then basically the ball hits him, and when you put your hand like right around here out your body and kind of outstretch, yeah, that obviously is a penalty, especially with how the rule is, and they're just these kind of inconsistent handball rule that's going on in MLS. But either way, in the 75th minute, Bo had a chance to take the penalty, and I was kind of surprised Bo took it, because I thought it was Hio, the one that takes this penalty, especially how big this goal could mean for New England. But I guess Gustavo Bo wanted to take this because he wants to score on his return for the Refs after suffering so many days on the IR table. But yeah, he scored here to give the Refs a 1-0 lead. Though that lead would quickly diminish just a couple of seconds after they score the goal, and this is also where we get to the WTF moment from Omar Gonzalez, because yeah, I probably should have also just put Uru and Gonzalez on the assist chart, because that's exactly what happened. Like, Gonzalez literally just decided that he was going to be playing for the Philadelphia Union one moment and just passed it straight to Uru that said, "Oh, look, thank you very much. I'm just going to put this one in." And yeah, that was just a calamity of an error. I mean, we've seen so many calamity of defensive mistake this season in MLS, and I think that has to be one of the worst one, where I feel like that was kind of similar to what we've seen where this season some goalkeepers just kind of pass it right to the attacker, and the attacker basically say, "Oh, look what I found. I'm just going to put this one into the back of the net." And that, of course, is the case in this moment. But in the 82nd minute, Turner was able to deny Uru from close range. I mean, Turner basically didn't had to work at all throughout the game, but all of a sudden he had to be on his toe, because I feel like the Revs would clearly unravel after they got sucker punched by Philly after scoring the opening goal, and the Union were looking to try to steal this one. But in the 87th minute, the Revs had one last opportunity to retake the lead by trying to stab it in the back post, but just out of reach of that one. And yeah, in the end, in a very frustrating game, the refs have to settle for a point against the Union, as the shots in this one, 22 shots compared to just 5 that the Union has, but only 4 of them was actually on goal compared to 2 that the Union has. 11 shots off target for the 1 that the Union has. 2 shots that was blocked for the 7 that the refs had. And possession-wise, 59% possession compared to 41% possession that the Union has had in this game. And again, very 2020 Revolution kind of plays in this game, and it has to frustrate a lot of refs fans because they know that they've been through that experience, and although that experience eventually did guide them to an Eastern Conference final kind of appearance, they know that there were those games where they were just pulling their hair out with the way that how in the world this team dominated the entire game, and yet they don't get a result because of just some very bad finishing for them. But for the Union, I mean, they probably are consider themselves lucky that they got a point out of this game, because this was probably the worst game that the Union have played on the road this season. Yet they still were able to walk away with a point, and that's just kind of is for the Union. Like this is a team that always find ways to get points, no matter how ugly it can be, and that, you know, I think it just kind of fits their identity, and especially the way that Jim Curtin likes to play, especially go on the road when the Union play away. But either way, moving on in terms of the next match, we got Orlando versus FC Dallas, and this was another game I said in the preview. I predicted that Dallas could get all 3 points because Orlando was due for a loss. I mean, you knew that with the pattern that they've been going this season, which has been so inconsistent, and that it's been, I think, 2 games since they have suffered their last loss, you know they're due for one. And they did. Though early on, it definitely looked like it wasn't the case, because 15 minutes in after the first shots happened, as Arriola hits one straight to Galese, and that, again, this was another game where it was kind of a slow start, where both teams was just kind of feeling each other out. Galese would then deny Arriola from close range in the 22nd minute, before Paz denying Pereira from long range. And then in the 3rd minute of stoppage time, right as we thought that this was going to head scoreless heading into the halftime whistle, Kara would score from Pereira to give Orlando City a 1-0 lead, and that was a great looping header there from Aaron Kara to give Orlando City a 1-0 lead. And the second half looked like Orlando were trying to push for the second goal after they were leading 1-0 at halftime. Pereira then tried to do so, but he hits the side netting. I even wrote Orlando picked up where they left off and were trying to push for the second goal. Kara looking to try to score his second goal as he actually goes on his bike, but that was denied by Paz. I mean, the way that he actually was able to connect that bicycle kick, despite there was a Dallas defender right near him. I mean, yeah, you kind of question the defending there from Dallas, but if that went in, that would really be challenging those 2 goals that I've mentioned that was scored by the Red Bulls from Lakinias and Morgan as the goal of the week for this week. But in the 67th minute, this is where the momentum switched, because Arriola would score from Hara to tie the game up for FC Dallas, and you know, it was kind of against the run of play, because up to that point Orlando kind of dominated the game, and then just 3 minutes later Hara would score from Ferreira to give Dallas a 2-1 lead. Now, there was a hint that this could have been offside, and it was very close, but I think Hara was able to just stay on side here, and in a blink of an eye, Dallas was leading in this one after just a couple of minutes ago. It looked like Orlando was going to cruise their way to another 3 points, and I even wrote Dallas has completely flipped this game upside down. Though Kara did have a free header in the back post, but he missed that one wide, and that's definitely one that he's gonna think about, and especially this one would actually come back to bite Orlando, because after when Galese was able to deny Fiera from 10 yards out, Dallas put this game out of reach, as Arriola has scored here from Fiera to make it 3-1 in favor of FC Dallas. I mean, it's not a big surprise that Paul Arriola had a great game in this one. I mean, he's definitely pumped up to be joining the national team in terms of these friendlies and Nations League games, that you want to make sure he's going to be in good form heading into that one, and that is especially the case after this game. Certainly a man of the match performance for Paul Arriola in this one, and I also will say that this is one that, you know, despite Arriola did score his second goal in this one, yeah, Galese will want this one back, because with the way that Arriola shot this one, it looked like kind of hit straight to Galese and basically just kind of went under Galese. I mean, it was maybe just some late reaction from Pedro Galese there that wasn't able to push that one away, and that's usually one that, with the caliber of Galese, is, even though I think Galese this season has definitely took a bit of a drop of level compared to previous season, that's one that he's got to say. But Dallas wouldn't care because they were up 3-1 and pretty much killed this game off. And it looked like it was 4-1 in the first minute of stoppage time when Arriola went through on goal and score what looked like was his hat trick, but the goal was disallowed because of an offside decision. But Dallas in the end still does get all 3 points as they win 3-1 against Orlando City. And the shots on this one, 15 shots compared to 13 that Dallas had, 6 shots on goal compared to 3 that Orlando has, 5 shots off target compared to 4 that Orlando has, 2 shots that was blocked compared to 8 that Orlando has, and possession-wise, dead even at 50% for both of these teams. And again, for Dallas, this is a team that, unlike previous season, this team has actually done very well on the road, and it seems like it could be a special season for Dallas, and especially for Nico Estevez, who, I haven't mentioned a lot about Nico Estevez, of the fact that, he's still only a first-year head coach for FC Dallas, and that maybe there should be some consideration of him potentially winning the Coach of the Year, because this is just a remarkable turnaround for FC Dallas after what happened last season, and in some way they're kind of starting to look like them old selves. We know that this is a Dallas team that for years and years they have always been one of the most consistent team in MLS and always been in the playoffs, and it seems like this could be the case. And this maybe is the best Dallas team that I've seen in previous year, because while in previous year some of these Dallas team have some really good players that has carried them, I think this one is probably the best, and that this is the one that maybe can do something special that they haven't done since the whole Mauro Diaz and Oscar Pereira era. Which, by the way, I would also say that this was kind of like the Oscar Pereira derby, but Oscar Pereira wasn't able to win against his former team in this one. But moving on, in terms of the next match, is Montreal and the FC Cincinnati, and again, there's just something about whenever both of these teams play, that there's going to be a lot of goals that is going to be scored in this game. And for the second time this season, the final score of this game was 4-3 in favor of Montreal. Though this was a game where, it looked like Montreal was definitely hanging on for dear life, because Cincinnati was really pushing late to trying to get that fourth goal to make this even a more crazier game. But the goal scoring all started in the 12th minute when Junior Moreno would score from Vasquez and Barrial to give FC Cincinnati a 1-0 lead. That lead would be short-lived. As 9 minutes later, Joel Waterman would score from Miller and Torres to tie the game up at 1 apiece for FC Cincinnati, and it was almost 2-1, tie the game 1-1 for Montreal. Not Cincinnati there for a sec. I don't know why I said that, but in the 30th minute, Wanyama then heads it just wide from close range, and you just kind of feel like momentum was with Montreal, with them getting the equalizer, and we're looking to trying to get that second goal. Remember, Montreal coming into this game, they've lost back-to-back games. They definitely want to get all 3 points to get themselves back in a good position in the Eastern Conference. But in the 40th minute, Baji did went through on goal, but Breza with a big save here to deny him as Baji was one-on-one with Breza there. And then in the 4th minute of stoppage time, Montreal actually would take the lead. It's Kyoto, the one that gave Montreal a 2-1 lead. Now, I know that Cincinnati fans would be thinking that there should have been a foul in this one, because with the way that Kyoto kind of took this ball away from Sanitano, usually goalkeeper kind of get the benefit if they kind of fumble the ball, but I just feels like in this play, I don't think Kyoto ever really, Kyoto kind of just maybe took that ball away from Sanitano, and, in many ways, Sanitano, and that back line for Cincinnati kind of had some miscommunication, though, Sanitano, I think, mostly is responsible for this, because he fumbled this one, and when you don't catch it cleanly, and as long as, if the attacking player didn't make any contact with the goalkeeper, which, in this case, Kyoto actually didn't make any contact with Sanitano, that's a fair play, and there shouldn't be a foul on that play at all. And yeah, the goal of course was good, and Montreal were able to take a 2-1 lead heading into halftime. And the second half, they waste no time to make it 3-1, as just 20 seconds in, Schreiner would score from Kamara and Lapinainen to make it 3-1 in favor of Montreal. But that lead we're back to 1 just 6 minutes later when Barrial would score from Acosta and Nelson. But then just 4 minutes later, a penalty was given to Montreal after VAR deemed that Hagelin handball that one in the box, which Kyoto was able to put away the penalty. And Sanitano, he's got to be very frustrated with that. He definitely got a hand to that one, and in some way, it was kind of unlucky with the way that he actually made it save, but somehow it still sneaked under him there. And yeah, just like that, it was 4-2 in favor of Montreal. But the crazy action didn't stop here, because just 4 minutes later, Junior Moreno would score his second goal from Brender to make it 4-3 in this one. And this was just MLS After Dark in full effect in this one. And even though it wasn't, this game was still around like the 9 o'clock time in the East Coast, it felt like MLS After Dark with the way that this second half was just, the goals were just flying left and right, and there was just so, like, you thought that maybe the momentum was with one team, and then all of a sudden the other team scored a goal, and it seems like the momentum was on them. Again, very similar to what we saw in the game between Toronto and Chicago. Only difference is there was actually goals that there was more, or well, there was goal in that one, but there was more. That kind of changed the momentum of this. But you think that with Cincinnati having a goal back, I mean, it looked like maybe Cincinnati is going to really push to get that goal, or the fact that Montreal would just make this a 5-3 game. And they actually almost tied it up at 4 apiece just 2 minutes later when Breza denied Vasquez from close range. And, with the form that Vasquez is in, yeah, you would expect that he would have put that one away. But there was no doubt that Cincy was looking for a fourth goal. And surprisingly, Montreal was starting to drop their lines and were looking to try to hold on to this 4-3 lead. And with how everything has gone, I was kind of surprised that Wilfried Nancy decided to use that tactics, because, yeah, I don't think that's probably the best tactics when this game is just absolutely bonkers. But somehow, after when Powell hits one straight to Breza, it worked perfectly, because Cincinnati really never threatened at all whenever when Montreal decided to kind of just bunker down. And I guess maybe this is just the reason why when you have an open game like that, especially what we saw in the beginning of the second half, yeah, that's when goals basically fly left and right. And when you have a game that maybe one team decides to sit back and not really just play that open game, maybe we see why that the action wasn't that crazy. I mean, it was maybe similar to what we saw in the first game I talked about between LAFC and the Quakes, where, in the first half it was very open, but in the second half one team decided to kind of just shut things down and not make it so open, and that's when the opposition really start having problems in terms of creating chances. But in the end, Montreal with another 4-3 win against Cincinnati, and the shots in this one, 10 shots compared to 13 that Cincinnati has, 6 shots on goal compared to 5 that Montreal has, 6 shots off target compared to 5 that Montreal has, no shots on block compared to 1 that Cincinnati has, and possession-wise, 51% possession compared to 49% possession that Cincinnati has in this game. And yeah, this is another bonkers of a game between both of these teams, but once again, just like earlier this season, Montreal was able to come out of just a wild game in this one on top over FC Cincinnati. But moving on into the last game on this board is Inter Miami versus the Portland Timbers, and it seems like Miami still haven't cooled off just yet. It seems like they're hot form ever since they were able to get their first win of the season after just getting off to such a miserable start. It continues after getting a 2-1 win against the Portland Timbers in this one, and because of the fact that this game is at Drive Pink Stadium in Miami, that there could be a chance that there'd be a weather delay, because after all, Miami basically is leading the league this season, I think. Or really, when they came into the league, I think they lead the league in terms of the amount of weather delay. And there was a weather delay once again in this one, but not as bad as the last one. The weather delay only delayed the kickoff to 8:27, and in fact, warm-ups actually happened before the advertised kickoff has happened, which kind of makes me wonder, couldn't they just kind of fast-track that warm-up session and start the game at 8:08? I mean, I guess maybe MLS does have a certain rule where, players need to have this amount of warm-up before the game can begin, but I feel like they could have just fast-tracked it a little bit, because it did kind of create some problems in terms of the way that, with this game started late, it kind of throw off the way that, I had certain amount of games that I'm definitely going to watch every time I have to deal with the situation of watching like 9 games at a time. But again, this is also the reason why I don't like weather delay, because it kind of thrown off that pattern a little bit. But in the 6th minute, Paredes did blast one into the stands from close range before Ivasic was able to deny Duke with a curler of shot. And I thought Miami early on, they definitely dictate the play and was controlling this game. And again, not surprised, because, when Portland does go on the road, they tend to go with their bread and butter, trying to bunker and trying to look for the counterattack. But for most part of the season, that bread and butter play has not resorted as well as we've seen in previous season, and maybe that has to do with a certain Diego Valeri that is no longer on this team, and also a guy called Sebastian Blanco that hasn't really playing a lot this season and haven't had a lot of games where he actually gone full 90 minutes. But as I said, Miami really dictate the play. But can they find the opener of this game? And the answer is yes. And actually, I should eliminate the T because they did find the opener in this game in the 27th minute when Campana would score from McVay and Duke to give Miami a 1-0 lead. So Leo Campana, who has really revolutionized this Inter Miami attack, he would be back on the score sheet here to give his team a 1-0 lead. And it was almost 2-0 when Campana had a point-blank header that Ivicic somehow was able to rob him there. And, I also wrote the Timbers' problem dealing those balls coming into the box continues. I mean, we saw this problem in the last game against the Union, where every time when the Union pumped the ball into the box, the Timbers were always second best whenever you get to them. And when you're second best to all those balls coming into the box, you are in serious trouble in the defensive end. Robinson then tried to curl one in on the free kick in the 35th minute. It was not a bad effort, but he missed that one high before Robinson had another opportunity in the near post, but he blazed that one high in the 38th minute. And despite some good opportunity for Miami to take a 2-0 lead, they have to settle for a 1-0 lead against the Timbers heading into the second half. Now, in the second half, Lassiter did hits one that was spilled by Ivicic, but despite that spillage, Ivicic was very fortunate that he was not punished. But in the 60th minute, he was beaten, and Miami did get that second goal that they needed. And it's Robert Taylor, the one that scores the second goal for Inter Miami. I've been very impressed of how Robert Taylor has been playing for Miami, and this is one of the rare times we've seen Miami has really got it right in terms of a super draft pick. And really, he kind of cleaned up a bit of a mess after Lassiter actually struck the post here, but Taylor was there to able to get to the ball. Though you got to question that Timbers defense, and especially with the way that I saw some of those Timbers defenders just kind of decided to give up when that ball hits off the post. Like, that just kind of maybe sums up the season for the Timbers, where it's just been a disastrous season for a team that made it to MLS Cup and are just clearly don't have a lot of confidence right now, and clearly lacking any drive to trying to compete in some of these games. But in the 61st minute, Taylor trying to tease up for another one there. There's no Tyler for Inter Miami in this game, but there is Robert Taylor, who already scored in this one. He tried to tee one up from long range, but he missed that one high in the 61st minute before Ivicic denied Malta on the free kick. So, a couple of times Miami trying to test Ivicic from the free kick, but Ivicic is able to come up with saves on those. Nathan then puts it just high in the 71st minute, as that was really the first time that the Timbers really find any threat on the attack. But then in the 77th minute, Tuiluma would score from Moreno and Paredes, and really Bill Tuiluma, probably one of the few positive for the Timbers this season, where he's been pretty much their main goal scorer. And it's also no wonder why the Timbers are struggling this year, because when your center back is your main defender and your main attacking threat, you have serious issue in terms of the attack. And really, when you look at the amount of goals that scored from this Timber side, if you just subtract that 7-2 victory that they had against Sporting KC, their goal total is not actually that impressive. And is, again, the only reason why it's impressive because of that 7-goal barrage that they had in against Sporting KC. But there was no doubt that Portland did have a lifeline, and they were definitely pressing to trying to get that equalizer. Callender was able to deny Nathan from close range. I mean, Drake Callender pretty much didn't have anything to do up to that point, but he had to make a big save here before Blanco blast one high from long range, and then Paredes struck the post in the front post there. And actually, I spelled post wrong. I spelled it post. He didn't struck the post. That wouldn't make sense. But he struck the post there near the front post, and it looked like Miami was on the ropes there. Like, it looked like the Timbers were looking to not only press for the equalizer, but is going to get the equalizer. But thankfully for Miami, the Timbers kind of ran out of time, and Miami was able to hold on to win 2-1 in this one. And the shots in this one, 15 shots for the 16 that the Timbers had, 5 shots on goal for the 6 that Miami has, 6 shots off target for the 8 that the Timbers had. Both teams had 3 shots on his block, and possession-wise, 53% possession compared to the 47% possession that the Timbers had in this game. And with this result, Inter Miami is above the red line in the Eastern Conference. And if you would have told me that that was the case just a couple of weeks ago, you would think that I'm absolutely insane. But what a turnaround it has been for Inter Miami. And, I guess maybe this is a good thing because, despite all the crazy things that Phil Neville has said, at least this team is still kind of playing well under him. But like I said, with this team, I know a lot of Miami fans would say that they'll be happy that they're in a good form. But how long before the drop off has happened? Because as I said before, it's good that this team continues to win, but I just have a fear that once they do suffer that loss, do they start to go back to a long losing streak? Because we saw it last season. Remember how they went on that 6-game winning streak and it looks like everything was going well and they were going to make it to the playoffs, and then they lost 6 in a row. Follow that. So yeah, this is a team that just needs to find that balance and needs to find that consistency, and at least so far they've been consistently good, but we'll see how long that's going to last. But for the Timbers, yeah, like I said, I wouldn't say time is running out yet, because again, they're still pretty close within touching distance of the red line, but with them playing the most game out of any opponent, and also the fact that you don't want to get to a point where you have to wait until when you have to play against the Seattle Sounders and then maybe get a big win and to kick off your season. I mean, that's what I think maybe Timbers fans are hoping that is the case, but there's no guarantee that would be the case again. And right now, I mean, this team, when you look at how this team played, this team looked nothing like a playoff team. And you just wonder, is this because of the fact that, well, I think a lot of that has to do with them not having Blanco healthy, but also just the fact that there is some huge regression that is starting to show in this team, and maybe a little bit of an MLS Cup hangover. I mean, I know when we talk about MLS Cup hangover, we usually talk about the winning team suffering that, but maybe the Timbers having that MLS Cup, even though they lost it, they might be suffering a hangover of themselves with the way that they're just not playing as well as they should be right now. But we'll see if they can eventually turn this around, because the season is started getting very close to getting away from them. But that being said, I am now going to switch the board one more time and look at the last 4 games that happened in terms of the busy Saturday night action. So moving on, in terms of the next match, is Minnesota and NYCFC. So as I said in the preview, there are some of these teams that are not going to be playing for 3 weeks, and for some fans, that might not be a good thing, because they're going to be unable to see their team play for a bit. But there are some fans that are probably happy the fact that their team is not playing for 3 weeks, especially for those teams that are not doing well this season. And one of those fan base is Minnesota United, and specifically for me, I'm actually happy the fact that I'm not going to have to watch this Loons team play for another 3 weeks, because yeah, it's been painful watching the Loons play this season, especially on the attack, where this game, once again, this was a game where if the Loons actually had any competent on the attack, and especially if anybody on that attack can actually show their clinical finishing, they probably would have got at least a point out of this game against NYCFC. But because of the fact that there's basically nobody on this team that can finish worth a damn, that's why we're getting these resources, and that NYCFC were able to walk away with a 1-0 victory. Now, early on, Johnson did deny Fragapani, and on the same sequence, Fragapani puts that one wide, and yeah, I mean, that shot that Fragapani puts it wide was not even close, and it also is an example of why he, alongside with Luis Almeria, are just having an absolute nightmare of a season and have no confidence whatsoever in front of goals. And I also wrote, these are the chances that Minnesota has to take, because again, when you play against NYCFC, the champion of MLS, you're not going to get a lot of chances, especially with them being very locked down in defense in these past couple of games. And as expected, NYCFC really kind of take control of possession and really kind of took control of this game. Castellanos gets a wide open look in the back post, but he could not tap it in, and yeah, that's one that Minnesota clearly got away, because anytime when you leave Tati Castellanos wide open like that, yeah, 9 out of 10 times he's going to put that one away. Dane Sinclair then denied Castellanos in the back post, but then in the 29th minute, NYCFC scored. It's Callan scoring from Rodriguez to give NYCFC a 1-0 lead. Not great defending whatsoever from the Loons on the set piece. I mean, we know that NYCFC have a couple of players that is threatening in the air, and Callens is definitely one of them, and he basically just outjumped everybody and gets the opening goal for NYCFC and what turns out to be the winning goal in this game. And I also it looks like it's all over for the Loons because, like I said, this NYCFC team is very stingy in defense. This team hasn't allowed a goal in a very long time. And not to mention that when you look at this team and how they've been attacking these last couple of games, I had zero confidence that they can come back from this game. Although that was almost proven wrong because in the 35th minute, Coleman actually struck the post on the header from the corner. Castellanos then heads it wide as Minnesota was just getting beat with those ball coming into the box. And again, if you're not going to get to the first ball when those ball coming into the box as a defender, you are in serious trouble. And that was kind of the case where none of those defenders were getting to the first ball and was always second best whenever NYCFC pumped those ball into the box. Castellanos then heads it high from close range. I mean, Tati Castellanos would be very frustrated he didn't get a goal in this one. He was very lively in this one. And I also kind of wrote, Minnesota just need to get this to the halftime whistle with just a 1-0 deficit, because you can see NYCFC was just having fun against Minnesota. Like, they were toying them on the defensive end, and I thought that second goal is going to come very soon. But fortunately for them, or fortunately for the Loons, they do head to halftime with a 1-0 deficit. Now in the second half, this is when the game kind of changed a little bit, where Minnesota for the first time started to really go on the attack and started to get the equalizer. Though in the 50th minute, Amaria hits one straight to Sean Johnson, and I said, promising start for Minnesota, but can they continue to pile on that pressure? And it looked like they got the equalizer in the 52nd minute when Coleman basically scored there, but the goal was disallowed for offside, and it wasn't even close. I mean, there was 3 players for Minnesota that was in an offside position. Great job there from NYCFC, catching all of them in an offside side trap. And, you know, I also thought that despite putting the pressure, the attack looked a step slow and just looked very predictable. I mean, compared to how NYCFC was attacked to how Minnesota attacked in this game was just day and night. Like, every time when NYCFC attack, you can definitely see they attack with purpose, and every time when Minnesota attack, it looks just slow, methodical, and just so easy to defend. Rodriguez then had NYCFC first chance in the 62nd minute, or the first chance in the second half in the 62nd minute, but he puts that one high before Fragapane puts it wide from close range. Again, Fragapane have no confidence whatsoever. And NYCFC almost doubled the lead in the 69th minute when Dane Sinclair robbed Thiago Andrade from close range. In fact, Thiago was actually one-on-one with Dane Sinclair, and knowing the form that Dane Sinclair has been is really the reason why he has time and time keep this Minnesota team in the game. It was not a big surprise that he made a big save there. And really, as time winds down, you just feel like this Minnesota team looked like they were running out of ideas on the attack, because as much as I thought that they definitely possessed the ball more in the second half, and maybe NYCFC took the foot off the gas a little bit, they just cannot break down this very stingy NYCFC defense. And Thiago Andrade had another opportunity in the 88th minute, but he missed wide from close range. In fact, you know, as the game goes along, I thought NYCFC was more closer to get that second goal than Minnesota would get the equalizer. Though Johnson did had an incredible double save in the 89th minute, robbing both Reynoso and Lud on the rebound. Amaria then tried to overhead kick. Unsurprisingly, that missed way wide. And then he went through on goal, but his shot was deflected wide in the second minute of stoppage time, as, you know, desperation was starting to show for Minnesota. But in the end, NYCFC was able to hold on to a 1-0 victory. And the shots in this one, 14 shots compared to 12 that Minnesota has. 5 shots on goal compared to 4 that Minnesota had. 7 shots off target compared to 5 that Minnesota has. 3 shots that was blocked compared to 2 that NYCFC had. And also, I just realized I wrote LAFC here. Okay, that shouldn't have happened there. Let me just fix that here. There we go. Yeah. I don't know why I wrote LAFC there on the stat chart, but 3 shots that was blocked compared to 2 that NYCFC had, and possession-wise, 45% possession compared to 55% possession that NYCFC had in this game. And again, you know, for Minnesota, I mean, if this attack doesn't get going, and that, you know, if I think that if this team doesn't make some signings in the offseason to address the obvious problem that is going on with the attack, like, this team has 2 DP striker that is either just sitting on the bench or they're just not producing whatsoever. And when you have 2 DP striker that is not producing anything, yeah, it's no wonder why they're below the red line right now. And that, again, I just think that if they don't figure it out, or if if they don't make some signing in the offseason, or maybe even sell one of those DP striker. I mean, there's rumor that Hunu could be potentially on the transfer block, but they don't figure this out. This team is not making the playoffs, and if this team doesn't make it to the playoffs, this is going to be a very interesting offseason, because I think this offseason could be an offseason where they might think about just tearing it all down with the way that I think with the core that they built the last couple of years. It just feels like it started to head to the wrong direction, and that championship window that this team looked like they had starting in 2020, boy, it has now slammed shut because of how bad they have been on the attacking end. But now moving on, in terms of the next match, is Colorado and Nashville SC, and Nashville did something that no team in no team that the last 23 teams that have been able to do against Colorado, and that of course is get all 3 points from Dick's Sporting Goods Park. So I said before, the Rapids coming into this game with a 23 game unbeaten streak at home, and they have a chance to basically tie the record to do so. Nope, they weren't able to do it because Nashville just kind of blitzed them in the early part of this game, and it started in the 8th minute when Sapon scored from Zimmerman to give Nashville a 1-0 lead. Then Mukhtar would score from Lovitz. I mean, Mukhtar, what a goal that was with him, just kind of hits that one from the tightest of angle. You could argue maybe Yarbrough could have done better there, because when you get beat from that kind of angle, you got to question the goalkeeper, but Mukhtar just hits that one so well there, and in a blink of an eye, it was 2-0 in favor of Nashville, and I immediately wrote, Colorado 23-game unbeaten streak at home is in serious jeopardy, and it definitely was in more jeopardy just 2 minutes later, because Mukhtar would score again, this time from Hackinson to give Nashville a 3-0 lead. Zero defending whatsoever from the Colorado Rapids. Like, the fact that Mukhtar was just wide open in the 18-yard box with a free header like that, where was the defending there from the Rapids? Like, who in the world was marking the most dangerous man for Nashville on the attack? Like, I was just completely dumbfounded to see that play. I'm pretty sure Rapids fan is even more dumbfounded of how in the world do you let the most dangerous guy on the attack for Nashville wide open like that. But nevertheless, it was 3-0 in favor of Nashville. I mean, that crowd at Dick's Sporting Goods Park are probably stunned, because throughout this unbeaten run that they have been going, they have definitely seen their team play well for pretty much for all the game, albeit there were some times where they have started slow, but this is a definition of not only just starting slow again, but just completely in free fall in the first 16 minutes of the game. Now, in the 21st minute, it was almost 4-0 when Mukhtar tried to go for a heady, but Abubakar just got enough to put that one behind for a corner. And 32 minutes in, the shots were 8-1 in favor of Nashville. Like, this was just absolute domination that we have not seen the Colorado Rapids go through, or we have not seen Nashville rarely does on the road, or Colorado just getting absolutely dominated like that at home. Really, probably since when they lost to Austin FC last year, and even then, that game they didn't look that as bad as what we saw in the first half. Miller then tried to make it 4-0 for Nashville, but he missed high from 10 yards out. And after just a disastrous first half for Colorado, and probably the best half that Nashville has played on the road this season, they leads it 3-0 in this one. Now in the second half, the Rapids finally woke up and realized that, yeah, we better get things going, because our unbeaten streak at home is definitely in serious jeopardy. But the problem is they're playing against Nashville SC, and when you go down by that many goals against Nashville, rarely you have chances to come back, unless if you score an early goal. And unfortunately, that wasn't the case, because they really have a tough time in terms of creating chances, and everybody knew what Nashville was trying to do after they went up 3-0. They were just going to put 10 men behind the box and just bunker to hold on to this lead. Barrios that did hits the side netting in the 58th minute, and it took until the 78th minute when the Rapids did get one back, and it actually didn't even came from open play. It came from a lovely free kick that was scored from Diego Rubio. So again, set piece problem continues for Nashville SC, though this one they didn't really had a chance, because that was beautiful free kick that Rubio that basically puts it over the wall and puts it in the left side to give the Rapids maybe some slight hope. in this game. Wilson then had a free header that was missed wide in the 82nd minute. Before in the 85th minute, Nashville backup goalkeeper Nico punched out a dangerous cross that was coming in, but unfortunately, when he punched that one out, it goes right to Max Alvarez, and Max had a chance to punish the Nashville backup netminder there, but unable to do so. And then in the 86th minute, Barrios hits one straight to Penico, which, that wasn't really a strong header whatsoever to really trouble the Nashville backup goalkeeper. And in the end, Nashville able to walk away with a 3-1 victory, snapping Colorado 23-game regular season unbeaten streak at home. And the shots in this one, 13 shots compared to the 9 that Nashville has, 6 shots on goal compared to the 5 that the Rapids had, 5 shots off target compared to the 3 that Nashville has, 3 shots on block compared to none that Nashville has, and possession-wise, 65% possession compared to 35% possession that Nashville has in this game. And yeah, I mean, Nashville, we knew that when they were up 3-0 in this game and jump out to such a quick game. And this kind of was similar to the game between Dallas versus the Galaxy, where once we saw Dallas jump out to such a quick start in the game, you knew that they were going to hold on to it. And that was the same case with Nashville in this game. Jump out to a quick lead. Colorado did get one back to make this one slightly interesting, but there was really no dangers as Nashville easily walk away with 3 points again, snapping Colorado long unbeaten run at home at 23 games. But now moving on, in terms of the next match, is Sporting KC versus the Vancouver Whitecaps. And I'll tell you what, I was debating whether I should wear the Whitecaps jersey for this review or the Nashville t-shirt for this review, because Nashville did do something that no team has ever done, going on the road against Colorado in almost a year and a half. But in the end, I decided to go with the Nashville one. But I could have easily gone with the Vancouver one, because Vancouver did something that they have never done this season. And that, of course, is get points, and most importantly, getting a win at home. Or not at home, but on the road. Because coming into this game, they were 0-6 on the road. But after this, they're 1-0-6 because they were able to get a 1-0 win against a Sporting KC side that, yeah, when they don't have Shaarawy and basically have no attack whatsoever, you knew that this was going to be a long day for them. Though they did try, I guess, their best to maybe score a goal in this one, but yeah, it was just not their day once again. Though early on in the second minute, Sweat did hits it high from close range, and as expected, Sporting KC had all the possession, and Vancouver was sitting in a low block looking to transition, which, I mean, everybody knew that was the easy tactics for Vanni Sartini to do, because knowing the fact that when you decide to bunker against an SKC team that have no attack whatsoever, you know that it's going to clearly favor Vancouver. In fact, they got a chance to get the opening goal in the 20th minute when the penalty was given after Rossell brought down Cavallini in the box, which Cavallini, who earned the penalty, slots it home to give the Whitecaps a 1-0 lead. And you can definitely sense that crowd at Children's Mercy Park, they know that the game is already over. Like, similar to what I talked about in this game between Minnesota versus NYCFC, how Minnesota, their attack, have struggled, and the same can be said about Sporting KC. It just looked like it was a death sentence as soon as their team went down 1-0 in the game. And it could have been 2-0 in the 30th minute when Dahomey actually went through on goal, and he was trying to chip it over Milia's head, but that one goes wide, and Sporting KC are just getting absolutely exposed at the back. And again, I get what they're trying to do in terms of pushing man forward and hope that maybe that will create an overload to try to create a chances, but it just didn't work whatsoever in this game. And because they try to overload the attack, they were leaving so much gaps at the back, and that in Vancouver, which I thought in this game, the Whitecaps, for the most part, they weren't that clinical whenever they go through the transition, but it was just clinical enough in this one going through the transition where they did cause some problem for Sporting KC in the defense. But in the 35th minute, Voltaire blasted high from long range before Russell had the best opportunity for Sporting KC, and probably the best opportunity for them in this game, as he missed an absolute sitter from 6 yards out, and we had to halftime with Vancouver leading 1-0. Now, in the second half, Russell hits it high on the free kick as Sporting KC was trying to push for an equalizer, but once again, the attack looked stale and predictable. I mean, it was just way too slow, just no movement whatsoever on the attack. Russell then puts a weak effort right to Cropper. Again, Johnny Russell, he's basically the only attacker for for this Sporting KC team. And when you only have one player that can create offense on your team, you know, it doesn't matter if he's a decent player. And you know, I said the same case with Reynoso in this one. We know Reynoso is basically the main guy, and he's gonna be the one that carries the show. But unfortunately, he can only do so much until the rest of his attack basically let him down. And this is the same case here. Russell was really the only guy that was running the show, but he can only do much if this Sporting KC attack can help him, which that was not the case whatsoever in this game. In the 71st minute, Zones puts it way wide, and you know, it just doesn't look like that goal was coming for Sporting in this one. Like they're most of the chances that they had didn't really trouble Cropper and the Vancouver net. Felipe then skies it from long range before Brown actually cleared Izamat Marine header off the line in the 3rd minute of stoppage time, as that was again one of the most threatening chances that Sporting KC had in this game. But in the end, it's a 1-0 loss for Sporting KC at home against the Vancouver Whitecaps, and dare I say the Whitecaps also got some revenge after losing to Sporting KC in the first round of the playoffs last year. But the shots in this one, 15 shots compared to 9 that the Whitecaps had, 1 shot on goal compared to 2 that Sporting KC had, 4 shots off target for the 7 that Sporting KC had, 4 shots that was blocked for the 6 that Sporting KC had, and possession-wise, 59% possession compared to 41% possession that the Whitecaps has in this game. And also, with this loss, Sporting KC is officially dead last in the West. I mean, it is safe to say that they have truly hit rock bottom this season, and that, again, I mean, this season, just like what I said about Minnesota for Sporting KC, there's going to be some soul-searching that needs to be done in either in the summer transfer window or even in the off season, because you know, this team looked like the core that they built, which, you know, unlike Minnesota, at least I will say that Sporting KC had built a core that lasted for a very long time. But you look at the core that they currently have, it's simply not good enough, and that, yeah, there's got to be some changes that we'll have to make, because this team right now, I guarantee you that this team look like they're not going to make the playoffs. Like, I think the only thing I will say that at least Sporting KC has something to show, unlike what Minnesota is that at least they're in the U.S. Open Cup, which is why I mentioned in the key points. You wonder if Sporting KC are just solely focused on that, and that they're going to try to do maybe something that DC did back in 2013. Remember when DC won the Open Cup, but they finished dead last in the East because they were so focused on that one? It seemed like that's the case that Sporting KC is doing. So I guess maybe if you're a Sporting KC fan, you'll be okay with that. But you know, in terms of league play, they got to do something to change it up, because this team just simply isn't good enough. And yes, I understand that they have injuries to deal with, but every team has injuries to deal with. And right now, the depth of this team is just non-existent right now, replacing some of their star player. But now moving on, in the next match, we got RSL versus the Houston Dynamo, and in the end, it was RSL getting the 3-0 victory over the Dynamo, and probably one of the more predictable result of this week. I mean, I know the Dynamo has been on a good form lately, but you knew that RSL was going to get all 3 points, especially how good they are this season at home. Now, early on, Rodriguez missed just high from 23 yards out, though overall, there was really not much that was happening early in this game, though I thought the Dynamo did had a couple of half chances. Avila that puts it just wide from a short range before there was a scramble in the box from Houston, or there was a scramble in the Houston box as Nelson was able to deny Silva from 4 yards out, but that was more like Silva just kind of hits it straight to Nelson there. McMath then denied Rodriguez from close range, but then in the 29th minute, Wood would score from Chang to give RSL a 1-0 lead, a lead that, you know, I mean, I guess they deserve it, because they did kind of create a couple of decent opportunities, but I thought up to that point, Dynamo was maybe slightly the better team. So yeah, you'll be very disappointed that they give up a goal there, and that kind of really energized RSL, because then Nelson would deny. Oh God, I forgot to put the RSL player name there. Now can't really quite remember, but he made a save here in the 38th minute, and you know, I also thought that Houston was just getting absolutely shredded on the transitional. I mean, they were just getting absolutely gassed whenever RSL was going on the other way, which is kind of interesting, but also kind of a taste of their own medicine, because we know this is a Dynamo team that at times likes to play on the transition too. Glad then missed Hyde on the header before Cordova missed wide from close range as RSL was pushing to trying to maybe get a late second goal. We then had some coming together right as the halftime whistle was blown. No yellow card was shown during that exchange as we head to halftime with RSL leading 1-0. Now in the second half, Cordova hits it just wide in the back post, and then McMath robbed Parker's on the header, and that turns out to be a big save, because I've also kind of wrote, despite RSL being the better team up to the second half, especially ever since they got the opening goal, they got to be careful because they're only up 1-0, and Houston does have the strength on the attack to create an equalizer. But it seemed like RSL kind of read that warning, because they decided to get an insurance goal in the 57th minute as Cordova would score here to give RSL a 2-0 lead. On the other end, McMath would deny Alfredson, who's trying to score an overhead kick. And Houston, I thought they would continue to dominate in possession, but RSL they were looking dangerous whenever they are on the counter. Again, they were shredding this Dynamo defense on the counter throughout this game. Then Jefferson Savarino was brought in for RSL, and certainly a huge ovation when he came on to the pitch, and he definitely wanted to make a statement early in his second stint with RSL, because he was actually robbed by Nelson after he had a chance to give a goal on his return to RSL in that Rio Tinto Stadium, and then he puts it just wide in the back post in the 76th minute, before Rubin did miss wide from close range in the 78th minute, and RSL was definitely looking to push for a third goal, put the cherry on the top, and it happened in the second minute of stoppage time, as Justin Glad would score here from Merrim to make it 3-0 in favor of RSL, and that would be the final score of this game. As the shots in this one, 15 shots compared to 13 that Houston has, 4 shots on goal compared to 6 that RSL had, 5 shots off target compared to 7 that RSL had, 4 shots that was blocked compared to 2 that RSL had, and possession-wise, 53% possession compared to 47% possession that Houston has in this game. And like I said, this was a very predictable result. We knew that RSL was going to get a win with how good they've been playing at home. And for the Dynamo, I mean, they didn't play badly in this game. I think the scoreline kind of doesn't outline the fact that they also had chances that if they would have taken, maybe this game would have been different. But how many times we've said before, when you don't take your chances, when you're the inferior team, and especially when you're the road team, result is going to happen time and time again. But there you have it. That is pretty much it for the review for all 12 of these games. Like I said, it's been a relatively long video because of so many games I have to review. But if you made it this far, thank you for your support. And let me know in the comments below, what do you think of these 12 games? There's going to be 2 more games that I will talk about, which are the Sunday game, which one of them, of course, have already finished. Because, like I said, I basically decided that I'm going to review these last 4 games after when the game between the Galaxy versus Austin finished. Nope. No spoiler in terms of talking about what happened, but you probably already know what happened if you're, of course, watching this video, because by then, when I finish uploading this video, both of those Sunday games is going to be over. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys do like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I, of course, will see you guys next time.